Camille had barely slipped out of her coat when she said, "Eden, can you take them?" She did not wait for my answer. Theo climbed into my lap. Milo followed, and within seconds, one of them pulled my hair while the other tipped a cup of purple juice onto my sleeve. A few relatives laughed. Not a kind laugh, more the kind people do when they are relieved the chaos is happening to someone else. Aunt Marla murmured, "Maybe they should sit in their own chairs." But Diane cut her off with a quick smile. "Oh, Eden never minds," my mother said, waving a hand like she was brushing away dust. "I did not say that," I replied quietly. Camille poured herself wine. "You are good with them, better than I am tonight." She flicked her hair over her shoulder, already turning toward a conversation about her latest project at work. I shifted the twins off my lap and stood to grab a towel. No one looked at me. Not Diane, not Martin. Everyone was busy talking, laughing, passing dishes across the table. The juice on my arm was already drying into something sticky. When I sat back down, Camille leaned in. "Thank you for helping." Again. She said it like I had volunteered, like this was my role, her default childcare plan. I forced a small nod. My throat felt tight in that familiar, practiced way. Aunt Marla's eyes met mine for a second, soft with something like apology, but she looked away just as fast. By the time dessert came out, something inside me had shifted. Not anger, not even sadness, just a quiet recognition that I could not keep living like a background character in my own life. And before I take you deeper into this story, tell me, where are you listening from? It helps knowing someone out there is hearing me, even if the people at this table never did. The next morning, I walked past the hallway in Diane's house, the one lined with Camille's life in glossy frames, dance trophies, graduation robes, her wedding in San Luis Obispo. My single photo, a crooked kindergarten shot, hung near the floor, half hidden behind a plant. Diane saw me looking. "We should get you some new pictures," she said lightly. "Already moving on." I said nothing. I had learned that silence kept the peace, or at least kept the house from tightening around me. But I remembered the first time I felt it 15 years old, setting my writing award envelope on the counter while Diane flipped pancakes. "That's nice, honey," she murmured without turning. The phone rang. Camille. A new internship. By the time the call ended, my envelope was buried under a grocery list and never mentioned again. Later, in college, it was the same rhythm. I worked at a campus cafe to cover tuition. Every Saturday, my phone buzzed. "Eden, can you watch the boys?" 2 hours max. 2 hours became 6. When I finally said, "I have finals tomorrow," Camille sighed. "You are lucky you have free time." I don't. The day I asked Martin for a little help with tuition, he did not look up from his paper. "We are still catching up from Camille's wedding," he said. "Right," I whispered. I learned to shrink, to fit every expectation placed on me, and every time I did, they grew more certain I always would. My birthday dinner was supposed to be simple, just to the family. A quiet meal. Diane brought out the cake with a proud smile, but when she set it down, I froze. Pastel animals. 3 names squeezed together on one side. Theo, Milo, Eden. Camille clapped her hands. They wanted the candles. They practiced all day. "That is not how you spell my name," I said softly. Diane waved it off. The bakery was busy. Besides, the boys love sharing celebrations. "It is my birthday," I said, still staring at the wrong letters. Camille laughed. "Relax, Eden. It is not that deep." The twins started chanting for the candles, and somehow everyone focused on helping them blow them out, my 28th birthday fading under their excitement. I felt myself shrinking again, the same familiar pressure behind my ribs. After the plates were cleared, Diane slid a yellow envelope toward me. "We have a surprise," she said brightly. "A family trip next weekend. San Diego!" "We booked everything," Camille leaned in. You will help with the boys so I can finally rest. I wrote it into the plan. I opened the itinerary. Saturday morning, Eden takes the boys to the pool. That is not a surprise. I said, that is an assignment. Camille frowned. Why are you being difficult? I folded the paper carefully. Because I am tired. Camille. The room went quiet, and for the first time in years, the silence felt like it belonged to me. Diane folded her hands like she was preparing for a negotiation. Eden, do not make this harder than it needs to be. It is a family trip. I said I am not going. I replied. Camille stared at me as if I had spoken in another language. Then who is taking the boys to the pool? I am not. I said, that is the point. Martin cleared his throat, the way he always did before choosing the quietest side. We can talk about this later, he murmured. Not tonight. There is nothing to talk about, I said. I am not going. Camille leaned forward, voice rising. You owe us at least some help. You know how exhausted I am. I know, I said. Because you tell me every time you hand them to me. The room tightened. Diane's smile dropped. You are being ungrateful. Eden, we planned everything. You just have to show up and do your part. My part, I repeated. I folded the itinerary in half. My part always looks like work. Yours looks like rest. Camille pushed back her chair. You cannot seriously be doing this. I can, I said, and I am. Their voices tangled questions, accusations, disbelief, but I stood, sliding my chair in with a soft scrape. This is not a scene. I said, this is a boundary. And for once, no one had a script prepared for that. I sat on my bed that night with my laptop open, the glow catching the edge of the folded itinerary. San Diego. 3 days. My name penciled in like a footnote whose only purpose was childcare. I opened a new tab and typed Catalina Island ferry schedule. The numbers lined up neatly. A 7:35 in the morning flight out of Phoenix. A ferry from Long Beach to Avalon an hour later. Total cost $412 for the round trip. $189 per night at a small hotel near the harbor. For the first time in years, the math felt like freedom. At work the next day, during lunch, I printed everything receipts, confirmations, a simple spreadsheet with 3 columns labeled flight, ferry, hotel. I slipped each page into a clear folder. Maya from the office paused by my desk. Big trip coming. Something like that. I said, you look different. She added, lighter. Maybe I finally ran out of excuses. After work, I drove to a Target on the east side and bought a sand-colored suitcase. The clerk asked, business or vacation? Neither, I said. Just leaving. At home. I laid the suitcase open on the bed. The room felt too quiet, like it was waiting for me to change my mind. Instead, I crossed to the hallway, lifted the large framed photo of Camille's wedding, and turned it face down on the table. The soft thud echoed more deeply than I expected. When I returned to my room, I packed in silence the steady kind, the kind that did not swallow me, the kind that made space. The house was already awake when I walked into the kitchen. Diane was checking a handwritten list, calling out items like she was directing a small army. Camille, make sure the boys have their water bottles. Martin, grab the sunscreen. Camille rushed past me, dragging 2 tiny backpacks. Eden, can you double-check their snacks? I am not going with you, I said. But she did not hear or pretended not to. Diane glanced at my empty hands. You should grab your bag. We do not have much time. I will meet you there. I said instead. The sentence felt strange on my tongue, almost like a secret. They accepted it immediately, because of course they did. I had never given them a reason to doubt my compliance. On the drive to the airport, Camille kept talking about the San Diego hotel. The boys want to see the pool first thing, she said. Martin nodded. Eden can take them early. Give you girls a break. I looked out the window. I will figure it out. At the curb, Camille kissed the twins' heads and held out one of the backpacks. Hold this for a second. I cannot, I said, stepping back. I have to get to my terminal. She blinked. You're what? But Diane was already waving everyone forward. We are late. Go, go. They moved toward Terminal B in a loud cluster of bags, shouts, and complaints. No one looked back. I turned toward Terminal A. My gate number flashed on the screen. Boarding in 15 minutes. I sent the message I had drafted days ago. I am taking my own trip. Enjoy yours. Then I powered off my phone, handed over my ticket, and walked down the jet bridge without hearing a single voice calling my name. When the plane landed in Long Beach and I powered my phone back on, the screen lit up like an alarm. 47 missed calls, 31 texts, 6 voicemails. The first message came from Diane. Where are you? We are at gate 34. The boys are tired. Call me. Then Camille. This is not funny. Eden. Come back to the terminal now. Another from her. Less calm. The boys are crying. You cannot do this to us. Martin's message was short. Call your mother. She is upset. A voicemail from Camille played automatically, her voice sharp and uneven. Eden, what is wrong with you? You left us scrambling. The boys will not stop screaming. Mom is losing it. You need to fix this. You always fix things. Fix. Always. The words felt familiar, worn down like an old doormat. Another text from Diane arrived as I stepped into the terminal. Do not make us chase you. You are ruining our weekend. I stopped walking. People streamed around me, dragging suitcases, greeting family, starting vacations. I stood still, surrounded but untouched. A final message from Camille arrived angry now, stripped of politeness. You owe us an explanation. You owe us your help. We needed you. My fingers hovered over the screen, not to respond, but to close everything. Each notification pulsed like a reminder of every year I had spent being useful instead of loved. I locked the phone, slid it into my pocket, and walked toward the ferry terminal. When the attendant asked, heading to Catalina, I nodded. My voice was steady when I said, yes, just one ticket, behind me. The phone buzzed again, but I kept walking, letting the sound fade into the crowd. The ferry ride to Catalina was quiet enough that I could finally hear my own breath. No one needed anything from me. No one was calling my name. When we docked in Avalon, the attendant handed back my ticket with a soft, enjoy your stay, and it felt almost strange to be spoken to without expectation. At the small hotel near the harbor, the clerk smiled as he checked my reservation. Long weekend, he asked. Something like that, I said. My voice sounded lighter than I remembered. In the room, I set my bag down and finally powered on my phone again. The screen filled with more messages, missed calls, voicemails, the same rhythm of panic and accusation. Camille's latest text read, We cannot believe you did this. You embarrassed us. I scrolled once, then tapped delete all. The confirmation bubble appeared, waiting for my choice. I pressed delete. The silence that followed felt clean. A little later, I walked down to the market near the pier. Vendors called out prices, kids chased birds, and no one knew who I was. A woman selling handmade jewelry held up a seashell pendant. Try this one, she said. It suits you. I closed my fingers around it. Cool, solid, real. I will take it, I said, and for the first time in a long time, the decision belonged only to me. Back in my hotel room, the seashell pendant rested on the bedside table. I opened my notebook, a plain one I had carried for years but rarely used for myself. The words came easier than I expected. Freedom does not arrive with fanfare. I wrote, It arrives when you stop showing up for people who do not see you. I paused. letting the sentence settle. It felt true in a way that hurt a little. The next morning, sunlight crept across the floor, soft and quiet. I sat at the small desk and wrote again. And it stays when you stop apologizing for wanting it. I read the words aloud, just to hear them in the room. They sounded like something I wished someone had told me long ago, but maybe it mattered more that I was finally telling myself. Later. I walked along the shoreline. The waves washed over my footprints and pulled them away without a trace. For once, the idea of something disappearing did not scare me. I watched the water glide forward and fall back, steady and certain. I felt myself matching its rhythm, step by step, letting old versions of me slip quietly into the tide. When it was time to leave Catalina, I packed slowly, folding each shirt with a steadiness I had not felt in years. I left a small note for housekeeping on the pillow. No name. Just a quiet thank you. The ferry ride back felt different, like I was carrying something lighter than the suitcase at my feet. In Phoenix. I walked past the exit signs that led toward Diane's neighborhood and drove straight to my own apartment. The air inside was still, untouched, waiting. I set the seashell pendant on my desk, and the way the afternoon light caught it made the whole room feel softer. I made tea, opened the window, and listened. No yelling from the hall, no demands whispered from another room, no footsteps trailing behind me. Just wind. Just breath. Just space. I sat down with that calm beside me and said aloud, "This part is mine." There was no apology in my voice, no shrinking, just truth. And before I close this chapter, if you have ever taken a step away from a place that kept you small, tell me where you went, because hearing your stories reminds me that none of us walks out of the dark alone.